word retirement is an emotional concept for a lot of people. Whether you think retirement is something that's a long ways away, something that you have to really work towards, something that you're nervous about, something that you want to be able to do early, or something that you're worried will never happen. There can also be a sense of confusion around what it really means to retire. Is retirement an age? Is it an amount of money? When and how much? Throw into the mix that retirement really might not be the same thing as it was for the generation before at all. The concept of retirement, at least in the North American world, it used to be that you got a job, you worked really hard for 40 plus years, and then you were able to retire at age 65 with a stocked pension. Now, in that scenario, retirement life wasn't super lavish, but it was enough to get you by. This is also what the proverbial American dream concept was built around, the fact that you'd be able to work and retire guaranteed. The thing is, how many of you watching this video have a pension plan? And if you do you also have house debts and other expenses as well? You probably do, and while our financial situations and our workforce has been changing, the concept of retirement has been changing too, whether or not we've been acknowledging it.
So there's this pretty big divide that's happening right now when it comes to talking about retirement. On one hand, we're hearing about the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, where a lot of people are working hard now, like in the present, and then boosting up their income and trending towards having virtually no expenses so that they can retire by age 30, 40, 50, or maybe somewhere in the middle and then just live off of their investments. Then there's also a huge wave of people that are growing their incomes exponentially by starting businesses, making a lot of money, and being able to retire super young, but then not actually doing it. You've probably come across at least a couple videos of people on Instagram and TikTok saying, hey, I'm 30 years old, I've already got 2 million set aside for retirement, but I'm not actually planning on retiring. Really, this trend is also growing, right? So instead of retiring at age 65 and either not working at all or getting a part-time job, more and more people are starting their own businesses as career number 2. And then there's the vast majority of people, especially if we're looking at Canada and the US specifically. You know, we always find it super interesting because whenever there's a movement or trend in the workforce, the average individual always views that trend as if it literally means everyone. We talked about the Great Resignation and how 4.4 million people left their jobs in September, and I'm pretty sure that was up from 3.5 in August. Now that's obviously a lot of people, but keep in mind that's only 3% of the workforce. 97% of people still stayed put and didn't go anywhere. It's kind of the same thing with these retirement trends, right? Like, you're gonna hear about the FIRE movement and starting your own business because that's what's more exciting. And don't get me wrong, it's obviously great to talk about these things, right? Like, financial freedom and making money is super, super important, especially if you're a subscriber on this channel. But these trends are not the majority of people, so it's also important to talk about the other side as well.
Now, what's happening more and more is that people are pushing off retirement because they have to. They don't have enough money ready in their savings, and they're relying on government savings and programs. Something that's important is that the amount of money that people who are retiring now are gonna get from their pensions, plus the amount that they've saved for each year in retirement, combined to spend on their expenses in retirement, is gonna be less than the disposable income that they're used to spending per year while they're still in the workforce. Like, if right now, with my disposable income, I'm spending about $40,000 per year, but let's say in retirement, my pension plan is only giving me $20,000 per year, and I've only given myself $10,000 per year. That's $30,000 to spend in total, compared to the $40,000 that I'm used to spending and had been spending for decades before that. And even if people do cut down from their 40K to 30K, that's consumption that's leaving the economy. And when millions of people do that at the same time, which is happening right now with millions more people retiring every single year, that has a really big impact on the broader population. We recently made a TikTok where we mentioned someone having a $1.5 million house but not enough money to retire. And a lot of the comments in that video were people saying, why doesn't she just sell her house and move? Easy. But our point in making that video wasn't that she'd be starving in retirement, it's the fact that she wouldn't be able to live anywhere near what our current lifestyle is at. Where would she move to, and how much would her day-to-day lifestyle have to change? The answer is a lot, and when people aren't willing to do that and change up that lifestyle they had pre-retirement, they end up keeping on working. Now again, this example and this person doesn't even represent the majority of people retiring, so let's get back to that.
Okay, so something else that's also causing an impact with these retirement trends is the fact that our life expectancy is also going up. For most of us, when we think of retirement, we typically think of age 65. But not only are people retiring later because they don't have the money in general, I mean, at the end of the day, retirement isn't an age ever if you didn't accumulate enough wealth to actually get you there. But it's also because people are just getting older. Realistically, that 65 number just isn't looking as accurate anymore. In countries like the US, it's looking more like 67. We also read that in 2019, 1 in 11 people were age 60 65 and older. And now just 2 years later, take this in, that number is 1 in 6 people. And you know what? On top of more people being in that older age bracket, there's also once again the rise in the life expectancy and the rise in the cost of living. What's also interesting is that the Social Security Act, yes, the one that set the retirement age at 65 in the US, was created in 1935. This was when the average life expectancy in the US was only 62 years old. So yes, if you're following, that means a lot of people died before they actually got to retirement. Now in Canada, CPP, which is basically our version of Social Security, that was created in 1965 when the average life expectancy was 72 years old. If we fast forward to today, life expectancy in the US is 79 years old, and in Canada it's 83, yet our retirement age is still set at 65. So now is when you gotta let me know if you're with me, right? Like, we're living almost 20 years more, yet our retirement age is still set at the same amount. Generally, the average person doesn't really know how long they're going to be living for now, statistically speaking. So when you're planning your retirement and you think to yourself, hey, I might live for 5 or 10 years longer, that means you're going to need a whole lot more money. Now, believe it or not, but this is also where inflation comes back into play, right? Let's say you're in a low interest rate environment like we are in right now. We've talked about this before where we've looked at high interest savings accounts and we've talked about how low their rates are right now. If you're in this environment, it makes it much harder to grow your money in the short term. It's not a big deal if you're young, but trust me, it's a very big deal if you're someone who's approaching retirement.
Portfolios are becoming more risky even as people age to make up for this. And because they don't have enough money to retire, they're taking on the risk of hoping that they make more later on. This means that portfolios are leaning more equity heavy than ever before. The problem is that during the next recession, which is coming, we had that little dip at the beginning of 2020, but not a full-blown recession yet, is that the people that are hitting retirement at that time will lose a huge portion of their retirement portfolio. And without an incoming income, they won't be able to buy back or regroup if it doesn't recuperate. This goes back to one of our favorite points that you really shouldn't solely be going to banks or to financial advisors who are hoping to profit off of you for all of your money and investment advice. You'll probably be told by banks that your risk level should be based off your risk tolerance, when really we ideally should be educating people that if you're young, you do have the time to take risks. Now again, we're not giving you advice either, we're telling you what we know, always do your own research, but statistically when you're young, you do have time to take that risk and recoup any losses, and as you get closer to retirement, that's when you should be switching to a more fixed income portfolio. So where we're at now is that more people than ever are set to retire. Those people who are set to retire can't actually afford to retire, and they don't know how long they're going to be living for, so they have to either keep on working or dramatically reduce their day-to-day expenses. And if we go back to that example of just selling your house and moving somewhere else, the median amount of equity that Americans specifically have in their homes is only between $50,000 to $60,000. That's only going to last them a few years of retirement spending, if that, and in that case, where would they move to and what would happen after that?
Another concern that we see come up over and over again is in the future of Social Security. Like, is it still gonna be there once it's time for me to retire? Obviously, it's a really important program that helps a lot of people, but at the end of the day, you probably don't wanna be banking on something being there when it's something that could be removed at any time. You know, I think it's super important to understand that it's now fact that Social Security pays out more than it actually receives. Listen, the US government reported that they only have enough money to last until 2035. After that, you need to keep in mind that there's gonna be changes. So now overall, I really think that the key messaging and the key thing to take away from this is that retirement is going to be a thing of the past. Meaning, it's not gonna mean relaxing and just sitting back. It's gonna mean continuing to work, maybe in a different capacity, in order to actually keep making money so that you can continue to live. Another outcome could actually be the older generation living with their younger family members in order to split some of those expenses like housing. I know that there's people who do currently do this, but it also will be interesting to follow this trend overall. Now, what I will say is that the majority of viewers on this channel are aged 18 to 34. What that means is that you actually have the time right now to start focusing on these things like retirement so that you're not scrambling once the time actually comes. And for anyone who feels like, you know what if I don't live to retire? I want to live it up now. Remember, you can do both. At the end of the day, and we've definitely talked about this so many times on this channel, you just need to put a little bit of money aside and make it automatic, right? So that you're not missing it. If you have to start small, then just start small, right? Like, just put a little bit of money aside that's being invested consistently over the long term, right? Focus on growing your income, right? Focus on growing those passive investments as well. These are conversations and topics that we're gonna continue to cover on this channel. And we did do a previous video before where we actually talked about the retirement calculator and how you can actually use that. that, so make sure you check out that video next. As usual, make sure you show us some love down below with a like, make sure you comment, obviously, make sure you are subscribed, and if you haven't already seen them, make sure you check out our previous videos. Next door. We will be back. You know the vibes. Let's go.